The beautiful Belgium spring weather has continued as we rejoin you live for the championship race here at Zolder. And after a thoroughly entertaining race yesterday, the ingredients are all in place for more of the same today. The fastest two cars from qualifying start from the last two rows of the grid, and the championship leading Aston Martin starts in sixth, just one place back from where they won the race in Abu Dhabi. John, it's a wonderful sight down there on the grid.
To me, it's a miracle. It's the first time I think I've been to this wonderful Zolder circuit and had three absolutely glorious days. Not a cloud in the sky, and I will certainly put it down as one of my greatest memories of visiting Zolder.
Yeah, it has been an absolutely stunning weekend. The track temperature now 33.8, a little warmer than it was perhaps yesterday when they raced. Low humidity, 21.7 air temperature. It really is a glorious weekend here at Zolder, and it's nice to see plenty of families enjoying their visit to the track. So there's a look at the Zolder circuit as the red indicator weaves us around this fairly narrow but definitely demanding Zolder circuit.
Old school, but all the better for it. Lots of sections of this circuit, Sector 2 to Sector 3. That's the bit that reminds me of so many great racetracks around the world that I've raced on, and I really do wish that we'd have more circuits where there's atmosphere, character, personality. That's what's lacking in many of the modern racetracks.
Yeah, there's certainly an intimacy to this track that you don't get at a lot of the modern circuits, and as I say, the fans really lapping it up. A lot of people camping here over the weekend and making the most of this lovely sunshine. And there's the scene just down through the paddock. As you can see, a lot of people are around. There's a little glamour village down there as well to entice the ladies who are being invited to join the weekend's events as well. So that's all part and parcel of the race event here at Zolder.
The other thing that's most notable is the total access that the fans, and believe me, Belgian race fans, and of course those coming in from the Netherlands to the north, from Germany, from the south, to see the GT1 championship race, they come with their autograph books. They are prolific autograph hunters. Photographs that I've had taken of me, I didn't even know I looked like that 40 years ago. Yeah,
it is amazing the pictures they come up with and want autographs. There's a happy smiling Mike Hazeman's on the grid. The Corvette ran very well yesterday and they ended up with a strong second place finish. Very pleased with that. Circuit he knows well, as mentioned. He's won 3 24-hour races. Now here's some of the grid girls dressed up in some designer gear by Nicky van Ketz, who is in fact a Flemish dress designer and has boutiques in Hasselt, just down the road. We were staying in Hasselt over this weekend. In fact, Antwerp and Hasselt are the two sort of centres of the fashion industry here in Belgium, and that's all part and parcel of this glamour village that they've introduced for this weekend.
Ben, this is another string to your already very full bow that you're actually so knowledgeable about women's attire.
Well, I'm learning all the time, John. Now, as the fans get ready for the start of this one, we've got the parades and things just going on at the moment, and everybody just getting a different vantage point. It's a lovely viewing point just over the top of the pits as well here, actually. You get to run from one side to the other, and you can see them down the start-finish straight and then up the back straight. As you said before, John, this is an island. The pits are basically an island between two straights on this circuit.
Yeah, so it is physically quite a small circuit, although it's 2.5 miles or 4 kilometres in length, 16 turnings, 16 corners. We call them corners 1 to 16. There are names for some of them, mainly of famous previous Belgian race drivers like Lucien Bianchi, Jackie Ickx, to mention two. Others are called after, well, the Canal 1 and Canal 2. Of course, the major European route canal flows just literally by the side of the racetrack.
Yeah, the Albert Canal, which connects Antwerp and Liège. So let's take a look at some of the cars that are lining up on the grid. And at the back, here's one to watch. It's Mark Henrici starting in the car, co-driven by Bas Leijnders. And they've got a lot of work to do from the back, but it's a fast car. They got taken out at the first corner. Nothing that Bas Leijnders could do about it. And they're going to have to be fighting their way through. But next to them on the grid, John, is actually the car that was on pole position. Let's just take a look at the Ford layout, though. It is a mid-engine car, and I know you feel that that is in fact the ideal situation here.
Yeah, and just watching particularly the sister car, Maxime Martin and Frédéric Makovic this morning, that car at one point was the quickest car in the warm-up. But it just looked to be the best balanced car, perfect through every corner, medium, low speed, high speed. And I have to think that certainly that Maxime Martin Makovic car, starting 5th position on the grid, 3rd row, has got to be a strong contender at the end of an hour's racing here in Zolder.
There's the car that started on pole position but ended up in an accident with the Aston Martin that was alongside it. This car has yet to score any points at all in terms of the championship, so there is plenty to do. The number 37 Lamborghini Murcielago with its mid-engined V12, 6.5 litres, so although it's a V12, it's actually got lots of torque as well, so it pulls out of these chicanes extremely well. We saw Lamborghinis fast in Navarra last year. They're certainly fast here as well around this Zolder circuit, and Dominic Schwager and Nicky Pastorelli the job of bringing them forwards. But here's another car, John, that needs to move forward. It's the car of Peter Dunbreck and Richard Westbrook.
Yeah, I mean, the Nissans are all about brute force and refinement. They've got that enormous horsepower from the Nissan V8, but they've got a very sophisticated drivetrain, chassis, suspension setup. Richard Westbrook just standing and talking to team members, and well, 4 cars started, only really one was in anywhere near competitive position in the qualifying race on Saturday.
So a 5.6 litre V8 sitting in the front of the Nissan, and it's rear-wheel drive. The road car version might be four-wheel drive, but it has to run as a rear-wheel drive car here. Dunbreck and Westbrook are very evenly matched British teammates, and they are hoping for better success today. Very disappointed to get taken out at the first corner. Again, no fault of their own. Well, this is the car that was on the outside of the front row yesterday in the hands of Stefan Mucker. Now, he and Pastorelli have both been given suspended penalties for what happened when they made contact with each other through the first corner, but of course it's his teammate Darren Turner who will actually start the race today.
Yeah, Darren is probably a little bit less combative. Unfortunately, Stefan Mucker has created a reputation for himself in the paddock as being the driver to avoid in the racetrack, because he tends to drive into a lot of people, and Darren's having now to fend off that, and he's even getting some of the flack from other competitors and saying, well, what about your teammate? So Darren will start. Hopefully this car will have a much easier first lap.
Yeah, they'll hope to fight their way through, which they did, in fairness, in Abu Dhabi. They went from 15th to finish in 5th last time out. Now, just ahead of them, not such a quick car, because we've got 2 rookies on board this car. Matthias Besch starting in the number 9 Ford, and his teammate is Vanina Ix, the daughter, of course, of legendary sports car and Formula 1 driver Jackie Ix, driving the same Ford GT that we saw in the Mark VDS colours. This is the Belgian racing team, very distinctive colours, but a bit too distinctive yesterday, because I'm afraid the 2 Belgian entries actually ran into each other.
Well, it was just plain dumb in my opinion, because Vanina Ix was doing nothing wrong going into the Villeneuve chicane, and she got tagged by her teammate completely unnecessarily.
Let's go and hear from Vanina on the grid.
Vanina, we certainly haven't had enough of you out on track. Are you looking forward to finally getting in the car and doing some racing?
Definitely. I'm counting on my teammate Matthias to bring the car in a good position, hopefully, and hopefully I will be able to race until the end and bring the car in top 10, we hope for.
Thank you.
So there is Vanina. She is a class winner here at Zolder in the 24-hour race back in 2004. There's the sister car to the one that she drives. That's the number 10 machine that Milos Pavlovic will be starting, the Serbian, who raced in Formula 2 last year, but before that raced in GP2 and World Series Renault. So more of a single-seater specialist perhaps than a sports car ace, but still learning what it's all about. Another Nissan as we move further up the grid. They had a puncture on this car yesterday, sadly, so Ricardo Zonta and Enrique Benoldi weren't really able to perform at the level that we know they're capable of.
No, I mean, Nissan have got 8 top professional drivers in their 4 cars run by 2 teams, and they are looking for success, and they want it now, not later.
Yeah, so the Nissan, the same V8 front-engine car with its 6-speed gearbox, the longest wheelbase by a few millimetres, that's all, of all the cars on the grid. Certainly the tallest car on the grid.
Yes, and I mean, this is a true GT car in the sense, both literal and every other sense. And this type of car ultimately is going to be the future of GT1 motor racing. Now,
this car had a problem yesterday as well. They were running in top 6, maybe even for a possible podium finish, the number 21 Nissan, but they had troubles with the gearbox. Jamie Campbell-Walter qualified well. They ended up 8th on the grid for the first race, but they've only scored 2 points so far in Abu Dhabi. Moving up now, this car led the race yesterday, John, but of course there was that incident between it and the Lamborghini that went on to take victory.
Yes, coming into turn 15, 16, the final 2 turns. Lamborghini hard over to the right, the Aston in the middle defending. Both cars came together. The contact was, in my sense, relatively light, but it was at the most crucial part of the rear suspension, the right rear of the Aston, and it broke a part of that suspension, and that was virtually, well, in fact, it was all over for that particular car that had been leading, and the Lamborghini went on to win. People in the Hexus Aston Martin garage very unhappy about that, but the contact was extremely light, and it just indicates that frangibility of suspension components can easily occur when they get hit in a particular part which is not where they're designed to be hit.
Just moving up the grid a bit, we saw Lucas Luhr, who'll be starting in his Nissan. Now this is the danger car from your point of view, I know. Fred Makovicky and Maxime Martin, who will be going for it in their Ford, desperately trying to move up. Maxime knows this track particularly well, of course. Then we've got another Aston Martin here. This is the championship leading car of Clivio Piccioni and Steph Dusseldorp. Can they do what they did in Abu Dhabi, work their way forward and perhaps maybe even take another victory? And then as we get nearer the front, the Aston Martin, the number 7 car, and that car that survived that opening corner skirmish and fought well in the final few laps. There's the Carl Wendlinger, Peter Cox Lamborghini. That's up on the second row next to the Alex Muller, Thomas Enger Aston Martin, and certainly Wendlinger much happier with the way the car's performing. But then here we move up to the front row, John. So the front row is the Corvette on one side, but on pole here's the Lamborghini of Marc Basseng.
Yes, and I mean, what a position for this car. Team manager, driver, and a win yesterday. It was in somewhat controversial circumstances, but nonetheless I think the overtake was fair, and from my point of view, a racing incident.
So the Corvette starts second. That second place in the qualifying race yesterday was the best result for a Corvette since Mark Henrici also enjoyed a second place at the Nürburgring last year. So we move our way up through the first couple of rows, up towards the front. The pace car, the lead car, is the road-going Nissan GT1 that will set them off on the formation lap in just a moment. It's a multicoloured and multi-capacity grid as well, although we gather that there is a problem for the number 6 Lamborghini. It's not starting this race because apparently they had an oil pump problem.
Well, the number 5 car also had a problem this morning, and I spoke to Carl Wendlinger, and he was hoping that they were able to rectify something between the engine and the gearbox had come apart or come loose and damaged the flywheel. They're hoping to repair the flywheel or change the flywheel, not change the engine, but they really weren't going to know whether that fix had been a permanent one or not until really they went out of the pit lane on their reconnaissance lap and onto the grid.
So away the cars go on their formation lap. Let's just run through that grid for you. Basseng and Hazelmans are on the front row. Lamborghini versus Corvette. On the second row, Aston Martin versus Lamborghini, Alex Muller and Carl Wendlinger. Then it's Ford and Aston with Maxime Martin and Clivio Piccioni. On row 4, we've got Lucas Luhr in the Nissan and Max Nielsen, and missing in the Lamborghini. Should be there, but he's not. Rossi and Hohenadel are together on row 5. On row 6, there's the Nissan of Jamie Campbell-Walter, another Nissan of Ricardo Zolder. The 2 Belgian racing Fords of Pavlovic and Besch are next up. Then at the back, some very fast cars. Darren Turner, Peter Dumbreck, and at the back itself, the pole winners yesterday, Dominic Schwager with Mark Henrici, who was front runner in last year's championship, having switched from a Corvette to a Ford. So we're going to have to keep an eye up front. We'll also have to keep an eye on those guys in the back and see whether they can move up the order at all. Tricky around this Zolder circuit though, John. If you're going to overtake here, as we saw yesterday, there are only a couple of key places, aren't there?
Yes, and you've got to be absolutely alongside the car, be it on the outside or be it on the inside, but ideally it's down the inside. The straights here in Zolder are not particularly long. It puts a massive premium on braking, but also on the left side tyres, particularly the front. The other issue with tyres here is that the temperature will rise, and everybody will start with relatively low temperatures to try and compensate for the pressure rise, and therefore hopefully get it right. It's a bit of a black art, and a bit of like sort of stick your finger, lick your finger, stick it in the wind to find out the direction. Nobody really has got it quite worked out, and what might feel good this morning in the warm-up, it's now basically 5 hours ago, will be possibly quite different now with the track and ambient temperatures much higher.
Yes, and the cars being so evenly balanced at the moment in terms of performance, just tiny differences in tyre pressure can be all the difference to turn a bad handling car into a good one. They're up at the top end of the circuit now, so they'll start to head back down towards us again. You can see the sort of grass edges here, but there's not much runoff. You've got concrete wall on either side, and it's a track that you've got to treat with respect.
It's a great circuit, and I wish we could see more of this on racetracks. You've got some runoff, but not a great deal, and it's grass, so that's not really going to slow you down. So it hopefully will make drivers understand and respect that racing isn't about making a mistake and having acres of runoff to correct.
Cars heading down towards the final chicane, the Jackie X chicane. We're going to see that pace car head off in just a moment. They come through the last chicane as we prepare for the second championship race of 2011. It's Lamborghini versus Corvette up at the front as we get ready for the start. Let's hope it's a clean one at the first corner. It's very tightly packed and is squeezing right through in the middle. The Corvette makes a very good start. Oh, we've got a crash. Nissans, two together in the wall. Westbrook and Zolder, Dumbreck and Zolder, I think, have connected one another. Another car, the Corvette, also involved. No, it might have been the 21. It was Jamie Campbell-Walter, not the Dumbreck car, but it was definitely Ricardo Zonta's Nissan out already.
Well, something spurred that all off, literally, as the cars took the lights on the run down into turn one. It caused one car to turn 90 degrees. I don't know whether it was a Nissan hitting a Nissan, or certainly the black Corvette of Rossi and Camara was also involved.
Yeah, leading the race, the pole position man, Marc Bassin, got ahead of the Corvette in the first corner. So slotting into third, Alex Muller in the Aston Martin. It was very compressed field at the start. There's Zonta, Ricardo Zonta. What a miserable weekend the Brazilian pairing and the Nissan have had.
And the two Belgian Ford GTs, the smoke coming from the back of that Aston, and a big lock-up going into the Villeneuve chicane. Couldn't see which car it was.
The car of Jamie Campbell-Walter also off. That was the other Nissan involved in that. So Peter Dumbreck's car still in. The lead Nissan, though, is I think the car of Lucas Luhr. We'll check that in just a moment. I don't know, actually. Just watching them flash past. We'll check that as they come past us first time around. Lucas Luhr in that car still going well. There is Michael Rossi's Corvette. Sadly, well down the back of the pack. That ended up involved in the incident. Just trying to see if the safety car might be called or not. I don't think it is.
I think everybody got off track, although there was a lot of damage on the left-hand side of the racetrack. A lot of carbon fibre shards in the wall, but that's well off the racing line, and the marshals have, you can see there, the marshals telling everybody to get over to the right-hand side of the track to ensure that all the carbon that is on the track does not come into contact with their tyres.
So Marc Bassin leads the race. Hazelman's in the Corvette is in second place. Third is Alex Muller. Fourth, Carl Wendlinger in the Lamborghini. Fifth is Maxime Martin in the Ford GT. Claudio Piccioni's in sixth place. Lucas Luhr is in seventh. Andrea Piccini's in eighth place. Then Mark Henrici has moved up to ninth from the back of the grid in his Ford. That was a bit wide in his Ford. Henrici going well, but that was Henrici just putting a wheel over the edge as we got a view back from the Hexis Aston Martin.
Well, what another breathless opening lap we've had to the start of a GT1 event, but everybody now kind of settling down as they go on to their second lap.
Yeah, on board the number 22 Nissan. Now, this is the Peter Dumbreck car, so he did survive that first lap okay, but he's got himself behind one of the Belgian Fords at the moment, down in 11th place. So
it's
still,
Pavlovich.
Yeah, it's Pavlovich in front of him. Still, Dumbreck won't be too disappointed with this. He's managed to get through the first lap. Now, which one is that? Is that the number 37 car? I think it is, yes. It's the 37 car that started from the back. Well, their miserable season really continues. They've had horrible starts to every single race, and there it is. And once again, it hasn't made it past the first lap, and I think that's actually every single race. All four races, the number 37 car has not completed the first lap properly. Back of the group, by the way, Darren Turner's at the back of that group, so there's Enrique Bernaldi. He can't really believe what happened to his teammate. There's Thomas Eng, a bit happier because his car's currently in third place and looking, so he's contemplating that. Wendlinger is behind, and then we've got Maxime Martin there. The Belgian Racing Fords now split by Peter Dumbreck in the Nissan. He's trying to work his way past another one if possible.
Alex Muller, third place in the Aston Martin, trying very hard to find a way around Mike Hazelman's. Yesterday, Mike Hazelman's, I thought, was a bit too cooperative when it came to being overtaken. Certainly left gaps for people to fill. Now being a little bit more defensive with the Aston right on his tail.
So Marc Bassin with the advantage at the moment, winning the qualifying race yesterday, as you say. Hazelman's just playing it carefully, perhaps in second position. Long way to go. Jamie Campbell-Walter walks back up the pit lane. What a miserable weekend. A shake of his head. He can't believe it. Doesn't really want to talk to anybody. He and David Brabham, of course, both out of the race before they even got to the first corner.
And team manager Nigel Stepney is not going to be impressed. Let's watch again and see the two Nissans. Well, one's in the middle of the track, the other somebody who's one way.
Difficult to pick up.
We just didn't pick it up in that. Another view.
Try and see. Yeah, they were very bunched up. A little bit of movement around.
Somebody hit the back of Zolder
Yeah.
and just literally slammed him, turned him 90 degrees into the sister Nissan. So somebody tagged the left rear corner of that car, and literally there was nothing that Zolder could do.
No, absolutely, just turned round into the car of Jamie Campbell-Walter, and then as they came through the first corner, that's sorted it all out, and Basseng had managed to stay in front, hadn't he, from pole of the Corvette. The Corvette had a good start of Hazeman's, but Hazeman's was sensible. He didn't sort of try too hard. This is there was another view.
It's difficult to see. I don't know whether it was the Corvette of Rossi or not hit him, but certainly something caught the left rear corner, and there was no opportunity. Ricardo Zonta had no chance at all. He just turned 90 degrees, speared into his teammate, and did a severe amount of damage to that Nissan.
There was again, that was where look how quickly it slams across.
It's difficult to see.
Yeah.
I can't see another car hitting that. Possibly one of the Belgian Ford, you can just see that coming into view. Whether that was the car that might have been directly under the rear wing of that Nissan,
now
hard to tell.
we've got a bit of a battle on our hands here, because trying to get down the inside is the Ford of Henrici, and he's done it. And in fact, it looks as though they might lose another place there in the Aston Martin. No, he's held on.
They have to back on. I mean, you'll be penalised if you run too wide over those curbs. But that was a difficult part of the track to get past. Forceful pass by the Ford, made it stick.
Yeah, good effort there by Marc Henrici. And also looking at Maxime Martin. I think actually, yes, it was Maxime Martin just getting past Clivio Piccioni. I think Clivio Piccioni's dropped back a little bit. Let's just check this on the next lap. Piccioni's still up there, so we'll check the positions as they come through this time. It's still Marc Basseng who leads the race. Got a useful little advantage over the Corvette of Mark Hazeman. Alex Muller in the Aston is still in third, Wendlinger in fourth. Yeah, Piccioni's still there in fifth. Sixth place for Maxime Martin. And then it's Lucas Lohr. There is Marc Henrici still battling away now with Peter Dumbreck.
Yeah, Peter Dumbreck clearly pushing hard, trying to go look up the inside into turn two. Gets alongside, but can he get it done? He's not. He's tagged the Ford, and around he goes. Contact with the Belgian Ford, and that is further damage to a Nissan, and a Ford GT is out.
Oh, would you believe it? Dumbreck and Westbrook's weekend has just got even worse as Dumbreck tried to go for the move there.
That might be a safety car if they can't get that Nissan removed, or the Ford further away from the corner, the exit of turn two. Well, look, broken suspension on that Nissan, but it's drivable. The Ford's still in the gravel.
Everybody fighting hard for position. Take another look at this, John. He goes for the move into turn two.
Yeah, it looks at this point fully legitimate side by side, but the Ford comes down on the Nissan. The Nissan goes around, and the Belgian Ford clobbers the back of it and tears the rear suspension out of the Nissan and tears some of the suspension out of the Ford as well.
So that was Marc Henrici that there was the contact with between him and Peter Dumbreck. Well, it will be looked at, I'm sure, but it's the number 9 car of Vanina Ick. She's not in the car at the moment. It's her teammate Matthias Besch, and there's Dumbreck still limping. Look at it, crabbing.
No, he's got to pull this car off. It is not reasonable to drive around at this pace with a car in that condition. Find his pace.
On-board view here.
Okay, up the inside. Now, to me, there you see the Ford. To me, the Nissan was sufficiently far in the corner. The Ford just slammed across as if the Nissan wasn't there. Dumbreck was in position. He had the right to challenge for that corner, and the Ford should have provided more working space.
So Dumbreck, well, he's still struggling to get that car back, but that is bitterly disappointing for the guys that were sitting second in the points coming into this event, but they are not going to go away with any points now. They didn't score in the qualifying race. They will not have scored from the championship race either. Up front, though, Marc Basseng, look at the battle of a second. Alex Muller in the Aston Martin has a look at the Corvette. Couldn't quite make it happen into the chicane.
No, but it's just giving an indication to Mike Hazeman that while everything has remained at the front, pretty much status quo, now here's going to be a problem. The Nissan is going to come into play. Can he get out of turn 9 quickly enough and avoid these cars, the lead group of cars coming through 10 and then into turn 11? He's almost in fact pulled over and waited.
Yeah, well, that's good news. So the leaders are unhindered as they come through there, but it's getting very tight up front. Basseng just stretching it a little bit over the Corvette of Hazeman's. Muller in third, Wendlinger in fourth in the Lamborghini. Fifth place, right behind him, is Clivio Piccioni, the race winner from Abu Dhabi, with lights ablaze. And again, like in Abu Dhabi, this lead group, John, is very, very close to one another, being brought up at the back by the first of the Nissans, that's Lucas Lohr. But what we saw in Abu Dhabi was the Hexis Aston Martin running in the same fifth place before the pit stops and coming out in the lead. So watch out for that Hexis team again, because they've got a car that could potentially take the lead at the pit stops.
Well, they've got tremendous pit stop speed. They've got real time and motion study experts working for Hexis. but other teams are working on it as well. And in fact, Nissan claimed that they were doing comparable time pit stops to the Hetsis team, but of course it didn't work out when it came to the final result.
Milos Pavlovic still there. Let's try and get some reaction about what happened at the start of the race, and let's hear first from Ricardo Zolder.
Ricardo, an unfortunate incident there for you. It just hasn't been your weekend at all. Can you take us through what happened out there?
Not so easy. The first race yesterday, we had some tire problems where it was a puncture. Starting 12 today, and the Corvette just hit me so heavy. I spun in the middle of the straight, and I hit the other car off the. I can see the image now.
Just playing a replay now for you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can you take us through?
Yeah, we crashed together there with the Corvette, car number 47, but he hit very heavy my car, and I spun two inside the corner.
Well, bitterly disappointing there. Thanks, Haley. And you could see them sort of bouncing and ricocheting off one another, John.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we couldn't clearly see it, but now we get the replays and further analysis. It was the Corvette that tagged the back of the Brazilian Nissan, and it just literally turned it from going straight to going sharp left. And Jamie Campbell-Water, doing nothing wrong, became another victim of an incident on the start into turn one. This time happened before turn one, but nevertheless the outcome is 3 cars before we've completed 1 lap are out of this race, and substantial damage to those cars as well.
So Marc Bassin continues to lead this group of 6 cars, 7 cars actually it is, with the Nissan bringing up the rear. Now if they all stay close to him, he's under threat from all of them at the pit stop, so he really needs to try and stretch out that advantage if at all possible. Into the pits, Peter Dunbrek has managed to get that very bent and battered Nissan home, but really no chance, I'm sure, of seeing that car back out.
No, I mean, the car we've pushed into the garage, he's brought it back. I mean, all he's done is get it back before the race ends and gives the crew a chance to look at the damage, assess what they need, and basically just pack it up and put it in the transporter and get out of here as soon as possible.
Corvette still running well in second place here in the hands of Mike Hazelman. Had problems with the brakes when he first went out after the pit stop yesterday, but doesn't look as though he's got any problems here, and he's going for it.
Wave yellow flag.
Yeah.
Wave yellow flag. Bassin dropped out, started on the throne. Alex Muller, be careful. Don't put your car ahead. Or wave yellow flag coming down into this is turn 12.
They all really slowed down. Our safety car is coming out by the look of it.
Yeah, I think this is no doubt to pull the cars that are around the racetrack. We've got the Lamborghini at turn 12. We've got the Ford GT, I think, still in the gravel up at turn 2. So it's a bit of a housekeeping issue here in Zolder. Just get the track cleared up and let's move forward once the safety car goes back into the pits.
So that was almost a tricky instant when they all started to anchor up under safety car.
I think Mike Hazelman's thought all his birthdays had come at one moment.
That's right. But meanwhile in the pits, can you believe it, for Peter Dunbrek on the left and Richard Westbrook on the right, it's all gone wrong for them in trying to move up the order, and Peter Dunbrek certainly seemed to have got his nose into turn 2, but the Ford came across, contact was made. The Ford is still running of Mark Henrici, that's running in 8th place. The other Mark VDS car of Maxime Martin's running in a competitive 6th. It's part of that lead group, and in fact, of course, the lead group will now be all of the cars that are still running, because they've been closed up under safety car, and with about 12 minutes until the pit window opens, it means that once again the pit stops are going to be absolutely crucial.
Well, another opportunity for the marshals to clear the track. Look at the damage to that's the Jamie Campbell-Water car. I mean, the bodywork damage to the 3 Nissans that are already out of this race, but with a little over 15 minutes running, it was just mind-blowing. I would hate to think the carbon fibre manufacturers, and they're going to be, well, they will obviously at the time, but it's just building back up your spare consignment to ensure that when they head off to the next round of this series in Portimao in Portugal, that you're fully kitted out.
So just the one Nissan of the 4 is in this race. It is the car of Lucas Lohr, running in 7th place at the moment. He'll be handed over later to Michael Krum. So Nissan will just be desperate that they get at least one car, well, it's the only car they've got left, to the finish in one piece. On board with the race leader at the moment, Marc Bassin, who's had a reasonably comfortable job of it so far. He's not been able to escape from the Corvette, but nonetheless he seems to be sort of maintaining a pretty consistent pace. Just still waiting now for the track to be cleared up, of course, before this field is released. Alex Muller, definitely a threat in 3rd in the Aston Martin. He'll be handing over to Thomas Enger later, of course. Car looks good, and it looked good in the latter part of the qualifying race, although it did just go off a little bit at the end. Don't forget, it did get a bash at the first of the beginning of the qualifying race, so I'm sure that affected it. Let's get some more reaction while we're under safety car now. Let's hear from those disappointed British crew of Peter Dunbrek and Richard Westbrook.
Peter, unfortunately, the race is over for you. Can you talk us through the incident?
Well, you know, it was a pretty difficult start, and I managed to keep good control of the car while all mayhem was kicking off around me. I was very careful in the first lap. I conceded position to a couple of cars, slower cars than myself, on the basis that, you know, better to be safe than sorry. But then I passed one of them clean, nice move the lap before, and then I pulled the same move on the other car, and in my eyes I'm pretty much fully alongside him. I see him start to turn in, I tried to get out of it, but you know, he just takes his apex when I'm already there, and it you know, spins me around. I get collected by another car and we're out of the race.
Thank you for talking to us.
Well, a very clear and concise description of exactly what happened, but an absolutely gutted Peter Dunbrek.
Yeah, and I totally concur, and that was my opinion when I saw the incident as it actually occurred live, and there's part of the reason why we've still got the safety car on track, get the Ford GT onto the flatbed, get it back into the garage and back to safety. And, you know, there's a certain point as a racing driver you've got to accept that if a car is in the position that Dunbrek's Nissan was, again, the Ford just took the option of cutting across and into the Nissan. Now, whether he saw the car or not, I don't know. That's only a question that they can then answer at some point later when the race is over, or certainly when the driver comes in and hands over. Nevertheless, to me, the Nissan had taken the corner or was in such a position that the only way you could avoid an incident was for the Ford literally to magic itself into thin air and disappear. Although magic the Nissan to just disappear into thin air, and it couldn't do that.
Let's take another look back, John, at the start of this race. We're still under safety car at the moment, and it was a very, very dramatic start that counted for 2 Nissans in one go. So let's just take another look at this once again, and we're looking in the middle of the grid, aren't we?
Yes, we are, and again, keeping an eye. 3 cars going side by side. The Corvette and the Nissan, the Brazilian Nissan, did have contact before. Then all of a sudden, the back of the Nissan, the Brazilian Nissan, you can see, turns sharp left, captures the sister car of Jamie Campbell-Walter, and also the Corvette that did tip the back of the Brazilian Nissan also became involved.
Yeah, interesting. It was Zolder who makes the initial move across. We're just watching how it then developed through the first corner, and actually after that it wasn't so bad. It was Zolder who made the initial move across and actually sort of touched the Corvette initially, and it's almost looked as though Rossi sort of retaliated to that there, and what it was, I don't know if it was retaliation or simply bouncing as much as anything.
Well, I don't know why a driver would engage in a manoeuvre like that. Clearly at the start it's very compacted, very close indeed. In fact, the Brazilian Nissan went from the left of the track all the way across to the right, then came back. Now, at what point the mentality of both the drivers changed or caused this incident to begin? But certainly the Brazilian, there you see it, just suddenly, it's on the right-hand side of the track, gets caught on the left rear. I mean, that's a typical police motorway manoeuvre to catch a criminal, not 2 racing drivers at the start of an hour's race. Well, in fact, it was, yes.
That was interesting.
It was contact with the Nissan contact with the Corvette from the car on the left, which may have been a Nissan as well, that then threw the Corvette in. So now we're getting more and more views from different onboard cars. We can see that, in fact, the Corvette, Rossi, was not actually guilty of doing something. He was actually the victim of it as well. Yeah,
it was really just one of those things where they sandwiched into less space than there was for 3 cars. They all moved a little bit at the wrong moment, and that's what can so easily happen.
The trouble is, we're looking at it at a slightly lower speed. Real life speed, it happens with the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And when you're so close as the grid is, it is very, very close grid as the cars take the lights and then come down to turn 1.
Well, Mike Haseman sits in second place, and Nicky Katzberg will take this car over in a while. Let's hear from him.
Nicky, you're waiting to get in the Corvette. Will you be able to take the Lamborghini?
I'm going to try my best. I think we can.
Thank you.
Well, short but sweet. He thinks he can, but he's getting all fired up for getting in the car now.
Well, I thought Nicky Katzberg did a really great job yesterday. In fact, I think he did a better job than his much more experienced teammate and almost team owner, Mike Haseman. So Katzberg did lead this race, and really, really impressive job from a young guy. coming out of a rather unexpected route into GT1. I think he was Brendan McGann, is that right?
That's right, yes. So impressive that he's got into a rear-wheel drive car like this and been so rapid straight away. But there is that Belgian force still not quite out of the way, John. So we've still got safety car lights on, and it's still going to be a little bit longer before they're released.
I think they want to be a bit careful, though. The wipers are going now, so suddenly, how did that happen? Well, you know, you could almost laugh at it if you didn't want to cry.
I know, it's not working out well. But there's the guy who should take over, the car that's leading. Marcus Winkelhock getting ready to take over from Mark Basseng. The clock is ticking away. We are getting to within 5 minutes now of the pit window opening up. I'm sure they'll be back at racing speed by the time it does. Meanwhile, there's a little bit of a breather for everybody. Lovely day. Everybody's enjoying the sunshine, the motorsport, the noise that these supercars deliver. Absolutely wonderful noise bursting through the woods here, reflecting off the trees, and everybody getting a lovely vantage point. As we've mentioned, you can get so close to the cars here. You get a great view of what's going on up close. Let's go down to the pits once again. I'm here now from Marcus Winkelhock.
Marcus, the question is, can you hold off the Corvette?
I hope so. I try, or I hope that we have a good pit stop, and then I try just to do my best, trying to make some good laps in the race, and I think it's possible to win the race, but first of all we have to make a good pit stop, and then we will see.
Thank you.
It is important to make a pit stop because, John, whatever happens, even if the safety car comes in on the next lap, they're still going to be very bunched up together.
Well, they are, and they're going to have tyre pressures and tyre temperatures dropping. They've been 3 laps behind the safety car. We're coming closer within 4 minutes of the pit lane opening up. So drivers are going to have 2 things on their mind. One is concentrating on their car, and hopefully they may have had to go offline in some parts of the racetrack where vehicles were being removed or the track was being cleaned. So what state their tyres are in, let alone the temperatures or the pressures. And then thinking, well, am I going to be coming in the space of 2 or 3 minutes, or I'm going to hang out and maybe try and take advantage? At the same time, the field's been compacted. A lot's going on for each of these drivers in their respective cockpits.
Yeah, absolutely. At the back of the group, by the way, Darren Turner in his Aston Martin, who hasn't sort of made much progress, but of course with other cars dropping by the wayside, that Darren Turner Aston is now actually in 10th place. It's only the other Belgian racing Ford of Milos Pavlovic of the running cars that's behind him. So safety car lights are still on. I would think they may well be switched off on the next lap, though, as Basseng leads Hazemans. It's Lamborghini, Corvette and Aston Martin still behind safety car. There in the background with the orange stripes is the Darren Turner Aston Martin, which will use the pit stops, I'm sure, as an attempt to try and gain some places, but it's the Hexis Aston Martin team that has been king of the pit stops so far this season.
Yes, and that Aston is not going to be an easy target for Darren Turner. They're all identical, these Aston Martins, and performance particularly on a track like this where you're not getting much chance to get a run at a car ahead of you. So Darren may just have to wait and hand over to Thomas Enger and hope that the young Aston team, Stefan Muka can do something in the car after that pit stop.
Yep, so we'll have to wait and see. Yes, Thomas Enger, meanwhile, will take over the car that's running in 3rd place. Winkelhock now ready, so he's all ready to go when the pit window opens. So 37 minutes to go in the race. At 35 minutes to go is when the pit window opens. Cars heading up or through the short chicane at the moment. Now, what we'll watch for as he gets to the top end of the circuit is the lights going out on the top of the safety car. On board there briefly with Carl Wendlinger. The Lamborghini now up to 4th place, so potentially a podium finish. And you know what? This Swiss racing team scored more points in one event with their new Lamborghinis last time out at Abu Dhabi than they did in the whole of the last season when they were running the Nissan. So Carl Wendlinger here really getting to grips now with this Lamborghini Murcielago.
And what they're hoping to do with a little bit of a break between now and Portimao in Portugal is in fact to do some testing, because while the car that's leading and the car that's in 4th place look the same, there may be subtle differences, or maybe not even subtle differences. So in terms of damping and springing and other elements within the car, so they're hoping to get a little bit of track time to do some development work to get that car further up the grid in terms of pace.
Lights out on the safety car. We are getting ready to go here, and they will have to do at least 1 lap before the pit window opens, I think, because they're coming down to the pit area now. You can't come into the pits until the clock has gone past 35. The pace car comes in, and Mark Basseng now will get this race underway, and he's really got to put in a sprint now because he wants to try and pull away as much as possible before the pit window opens. And watch that Aston in 3rd. Alex Muller could be on the attack of the Corvette in 2nd place.
Well, Hazemans was a little bit compliant. I'd watched the Aston through turn 1. if he can get himself right under the rear wing and have a look down the inside into turn 2. No, he's not going to take the risk.
No, and he's got to be sensible because those pit stops are coming up next lap around for most of them. I wonder if anyone will decide to stay out there. The likelihood is most of them will come in. Maybe if they've got a teammate, one will come in and the other will stay out. But let's just see what's going on here as the Lambo getting away. This was before the restart, John. Oh, and the bunching up going on at the back of the queue there.
Well, motorway incident yet again. Everybody at the back not realising the cars ahead of them are actually slowing down before they would take that restart.
Great restart by Basseng. He's got that Lamborghini flying on the restart here. And once again, you've got a battle going on between Lucas Lohr. Oh, somebody's locked up. And Maxime Martin in the Ford. You're looking back from that Ford at the moment as they come through the chicane. And it's all still very tight between the whole group of cars because of that safety car being out. The pit lane is going to be massively busy, I think, next time around, well, this time around, when they will be heading into the pits. And at the back of that group is the Belgian racing car of Milos Pavlovic. There's Marcus Winkelhock waiting to take over the lead car.
But is his teammate going to come in? He's on the brakes, he's not coming in.
Nope.
The Corvette's not coming in, the Aston's not coming in. Wendlinger is coming in, the first of those cars into the pit lane, and 2 follow.
Yeah, so Wendlinger comes in, so does Piccioni. The Hexis Aston Martin that makes those incredibly rapid pit stops has come in at the same time. Now then, it's Lamborghini, Aston Martin, Ford and Ford. Is it going to be the same order as they come back out? Darren Turner also in from the back of the group to hand over to Stefan Mucker. He's right at the top of the pit, so he's already in his pit bay, but the Fords are right down this end, and so is the Hexis pit bay. That's right down at the far end.
And some of the co-drivers are actually standing in the pit lane waving to their car to indicate where they are. The Hexis team at the very bottom of the pit lane. So there we see them now finally doing the driver change. Car goes up.
That was late going up.
Yes, it was late going up. I'll say watch the Ford behind, because if the Ford can get ahead of the Aston in the pit stop, that would be a massive result.
Last year, this team were the fastest on their pit stops. They get away, but they've got the whole pit lane to go. How are the guys getting on at the other end of the pit lane? Nobody ready to go just yet. The Hexis, the Fords are down. Hexis have not had a good stop this time. The Ford is going to get out.
It's a Wendlinger car. That's the car that's come out ahead of all of these.
Yep.
The Ford, it was ahead on the track, but it's ahead now, also after the pit stop.
Swiss racing team doing a fantastic job to get Peter Cox out in the Wendlinger car. Look at it, and it's got a good advantage over those. So Hexis this time, but they still gained some places there, I think, the Hexis car, although remember they weren't right up with the leaders. Into the pits comes second place Corvette and the third place Aston now of Alex Muller to hand over to Thomas Enger. The other Hexis car of Hohenadel also in to hand over to Andrea Piccini.
The key is the lead car, Mark Bessing, still able to run in clean air, lap 1 minute 30.5, but he's been matched in fact by Lucas Lohr in the Nissan, in fact slightly better by Lucas Lohr in the Nissan, and by Pavlovic, believe it or not, in the Belgian Ford, all running in the middle 1 minute 30s.
So in the battle for second place, at least for the moment, the Corvette and the Aston were closest coming into the pits. We've seen Swiss Racing put their Lamborghini out remarkably rapidly, and Peter Cox had gained the advantage. Here's Christian Hohenadel handing over to Andrea Piccini, and we've seen Hexis for once have a slightly poor stop, not their best anyway, last time with the Livio Piccioni car, but we'll wait to see what happens this time. This looks pretty effective this time.
I tell you, the guy on those tyres, let alone the guy on the wheel gun, they are athletes. They're all going to the gym and training. Watch Corvette and Aston battle down the pit lane, but there's no contact. It gets on just ahead, and that is a disappointment for the Corvette.
Massive gain for the Hohenadel and Piccini car. Hexis have certainly done it with their other car here. Now look where they come out with relation to the other cars. They have come out in front of the Peter Cox Lamborghini, so that is an amazing stop, and all those guys have now basically become top three. So again, Hexis have done it, but they did it with their second best place car.
Lead car still stays on track.
That's
still
right.
Lapping in the 1 minute 30.5s. Let's see this lap, has he been able to use that clear air to his advantage? Lucas Lohr behind in the only Nissan in the race has been running equally quickly as the lead car.
A 1 minute 30.2 from Basseng, a 1 minute 30.1 for Lucas Lohr. So now it's down to the speed of these guys over the next couple of laps as to whether they'd still be in front of Basseng when he makes his pit stop. Hazeman's out of the Corvette and Katzberg now in it.
Katzberg putting a lot of pressure on Thomas Enger in the Aston Martin. Nicky Katzberg would like to put the Corvette ahead of the Aston. That's the positions they were before the pit stops.
Yeah, that's right. So let's see what happens here. Hasemans will be disappointed that they've lost a place to the Aston, but he still gives us a smile anyway. And what's going to happen with regard to the Basseng Lamborghini when it does make it stop? That's going to be the big question. Will it come out ahead of these guys, in the middle of them, or where? Behind you got Peter Cox in the Lamborghini, and he's still being chased by the other Hexis car. And then Stefan Mucker making a move.
Yeah, Mucker goes down the inside, but he's slightly compromised on the entry into the turn 15, but he compromises, gets out of the corner, and the Ford right under the rear wing looks to go down the outside the long way, but in no position to dive down the inside, which he needs to do to take the corner.
That's Bas Leiders in the Ford that he's racing with at the moment, just runs a touch wide, really pushing that car hard. Now then, Basseng, is he going to come into the pits this time? No, he's going to stay out for at least another lap. There's Lucas Law, who is going to come in and hand over to Michael Krum. Pavlovich stays out there, so that yellow Ford is now running in second place. These two cars have not yet stopped.
And Pavlovich doing a really good job. That's the second quickest lap of the cars that we have been watching in that lead group. So
but some of the others are down in the 29s now, John.
Fresh tyres. They've held back sets of tyres, but they had a new set of tyres put on. That's the reason why the lap times have dropped. That'll work for them for about 3 laps, then the tyre will then settle down into a more consistent pattern of the high 29s and low 30s.
So Andrea Piccini in the first of these Aston Martins as the pit stop for the Nissan, the sole remaining Nissan in this race, goes ahead, and JR Motorsport will be hoping that they get this car out cleanly, maybe gain a place or two before the end of the race.
Big question is, has the Basseng car stayed out 1 lap too many?
Yeah.